when I moved to this country, I came with 2 suitcases. My parents made $60 a month in salary, so the only way I could come was with a scholarship. And I lived in a C-class apartment. And I was like, wow, they have cul-de-sacs, they have a community, all these people know each other, they all go to school together, they all raise their kids together. How cool is that? So I wanted to bring a community sense to these apartments. That was what was missing. So I made sure we do that. And so by building a community, you retain the same employees. Like we have the same employees on 3 of our properties for the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. So they form a very tight-knit group of people executing your business plan. And then that translates to great customer service.
Welcome back to The Real Grind, guys, the place where we talk about real estate while we sip on the best cup of coffee. Italo, I've been having so much coffee today that I'm already looking at this jittery. A little bit like jittery a little bit. Why is that?
They always say there's a difference between the poison and the medicine, right? I think we're kind of going too much towards a lot of coffee, but I don't think there's such a thing as too much coffee.
And it's not such a thing as too much real estate either. We can talk about all day long. We had amazing guests today, and this guest here, she is an engineer that became an awesome, successful real estate investor. We're gonna talk a little bit about that, but first, let's get the show started. Let's go.
Waking up to success, now we're getting it started. This is the real grind. Everything you've been wanting, building an empire, no question. Talking about real estate, investing, making the millions, no stopping. While we sip on gourmet coffee, the real grind. This is the real grind. Let's go.
All right, she is the founder of Engineer Capital LLC and AceOperators. She invested over 3,000 multifamily units, 140 million assets under management. Welcome to stage, Sandhya. Welcome. Please have a seat. How are you doing, sweetheart?
Doing wonderful.
That's
I
awesome.
love your studio. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
It's very good to see. You are probably on our field here in Texas, you're probably one of the most popular female real estate multifamily investors.
Hope for the right reasons. Thank you.
Of course, good reasons. All the great reasons. And we're here to share a little bit about your journey, your experience. But Sandhya, I want to start by asking you a little bit about your beginnings. Where are you from? Where was the engineering career came about? Was that your dream? Are you good at taking things apart? Or how did that start it?
I was just like a lot of Asian geeks, very strong in math. And I didn't really like tedious science subjects like biology. So I naturally leaned towards anything to do with calculations and such. So engineering was a natural progression into that. And so I got my engineering degree because I wanted to quickly get a job and make money. And it seemed like engineering was more lucrative than trying to be a math teacher.
Yes.
So I still teach part-time as a free tutor because math and financial literacy is important to me.
100%.
But I had my day job as engineer here at Texas Instruments.
And what type of engineer were you?
Electrical engineer.
Electrical engineer.
Yes, indeed.
What does an electrical engineer do?
Very good question. So I went into the semiconductor industry. So all of us play with our phones and there's so much electronics in pretty much
100%.
everything, whether it's your car, whether it's your, day-to-day electronics at home, your washing machine and everything, right? So all of them have the intelligence behind all of these fancy displays that tells you, that is the signal, the sensor, the power, all of that is from electrical engineers coding that into the chips that's full of the manufacturing facilities we see here at Texas Instruments and Richardson and Dallas. It's headquartered here.
Right. Isn't it big? Mm-hmm. And I heard
Yes.
that they're opening a plant, some in Sherman. Is
Yes.
that came to fruition or not? Are they doing it?
They are doing it. They've definitely gotten started on it. It's because of the CHIP Act that Biden enacted a couple of years ago and gave incentives for more of the manufacturing to move into the United States. So that's across the board, even Intel, Texas Instruments, a lot of U.S. companies are spending money on manufacturing here instead of offshore.
And Sandhya, what was the shortest, right a little bit in between or a little bit after COVID was the shortage of chips. What was that all about?
Manufacturing stopped because people couldn't go into the factories to work because we worked closely with each other to go through an assembly line. So
And-
when that slowed down, that decreased the supply.
But if we had it here in the United States, probably wouldn't go to that problem,
Maybe not. Maybe we could have worn masks and kept the distancing. Maybe the entire COVID couldn't have
Yeah,
happened.
because I
here, right?
remember like prices of things just jacked up. Cars was like, oh,
Yep.
we cannot release cars because we don't have chips and stuff. That's cool, man.
Yep.
I'm not an engineer. I was an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
but I know I like to take things apart when I was a kid, and like a very good old boy taking as assembly my dad's VCR, and he got pissed at me for stuff, but I couldn't put back together.
Oh, that's a problem.
Sandhya, how did you start on the real estate? What was your first pivot moment that you found real estate investing after the engineer career? How'd that started?
I had an intermediate stage in there where even in my engineering career, I got my MBA and I was into the stock market. And when I had kids, I quit my full-time corporate and went fully into the stock market. And I got decent at it and the market was doing well. So we had a bit of a tax problem. My husband had a W-2 and I was doing well in stocks. So it was time to find a way to defer my taxes a little bit. I didn't have any crazy business idea to invent, the next iPhone or something. So real estate seemed like a natural progression, but single family rentals just seemed like a big hassle because I didn't want to deal with the 4 T's that we talk about, the tenants, toilets, trash, and termites. So I attended a weekend event and learned about large multifamily, where you can scale and you can pay a third-party property management company to take care of the day-to-day hassles of a landlord so that I could be an asset manager similar to my project management job at a higher level and just focus on the financials and our key values and say that to the on-site people who will then execute our business plan. And that made sense. So that's how I got into multifamily.
So no single family whatsoever. You just went straight to the multifamily side.
Yep, no fix and flips, no single family rentals. 0 to 86 doors was my first deal.
Oh wow, that's incredible and that's amazing. And a lot of people talked about this, right? That people want to have control of an asset, and a lot of people that think, hey, I need to start investing in real estate, it automatically, I'll guarantee you that over 85% or more maybe we think, oh, I need to buy a house, put tenants on.
And that's a lot of work. And so if you walk yourself through the day-to-day logistics of whatever scenario you're imagining and talk to somebody actually in the trenches doing it,
Yeah.
you might change your mind.
Right. Well, Dad and I, we had a single family, and the problem with a lot of entrepreneurs, they don't factor in their amount of hours put into it.
Exactly.
They quantify dollar amounts by, for example, if you're going to renovate something, you're going to fix the roof, for example, if you're going to fix the AC, change the boil, paint the house, you really measure all those factors. But the amount of hours that you put in to make this happen, if you would, or whatever the amount, let's just put a number to that, let's say you're paying somebody an hour to do that job of asset managing, then you start losing money or breaking even.
Yep.
If so,
I looked at it. I looked at property management companies who would manage a single family rental for me. They wanted such a high fee because it wasn't a big enough portfolio, right? If
Right.
I gave them 2 rental properties, it wasn't enough for them to make it worth their time. So
Yeah.
they would charge me a high fee.
yeah.
Versus, you give them 200 doors, they're like, oh, hell yeah, I'll give it to you. I'll manage it for you for 3%. And then it fits the financial underwriting.
Amen.
That's what makes sense.
I had a guy that came with our bus tour, and we took him to the property. He was on the fence to invest in his first deal with us, $50K, and then he didn't. He was just like, you know what? I think I'm ready. Anyway, it was over a year that I haven't seen him, and I saw him recently, and it's like, hey man, how's it going? Yeah, how you doing? Still thinking of investing? He's like, well, I bought a house and got tenants on. Actually, I think about it. He bought a house for him, and he rent his old house. And then I was like, oh, how's that working for you? Yeah, man. It's a lot of work. My weekends now are taken. My wife used to put me to put chores around the house. Now I had to do extra stuff. And I was like, there you go, man. I hate to say it, but it's the truth, And finding, I'm glad that I went to the same conference as you, that we find this method together, Sandhya, because we'll be able to help other people to invest with people such as yourself. But so you being investor over at 3,000 doors now, what is your biggest acquisition for your side?
So as a general partner, the biggest deal I've done is $29.5 million. It's about 254 doors.
Nice.
It's right here in the DFW area, and it's with 2 other partners that I met through the group. So my first deal of 86 doors also was with the same 2 partners. So
Yeah.
it's nice when you have a connection, and we sold that first deal, and it was like, okay, shall we do another deal? And it made sense, and all the chips fell in place, and it went well. So we have a good working relationship, and that's so important among partners to
Yeah.
share the same
100%.
values, because when you get into a partnership and sign loans together, it's a business marriage. You want to make sure you date first before you marry, not a Vegas wedding style.
That's very true. So what advice you would give to people that are, getting into this real estate nowadays? And, what was the first steps to take? Because you had such an awesome story from 0 to at 80 doors. That is awesome.
So the first steps I actually did was to invest as what we call a passive investor or a limited partner. So that's the equivalent of being a passenger in a plane, and you let somebody else pilot the plane. You figure out, do I even like being on an airplane before I say I want to be a pilot, right? Maybe you don't like airplane rides. You don't like being sky high, right? So be a passenger in a plane, see how it goes. Can you weather the turbulence and the storms and the delays and everything else? Then sign up to be a co-pilot with an experienced pilot, do the hours of training, and then be the pilot yourself. And that's the exact same steps I did in multifamily. Invested as a passive investor. I learned from the mentorship, as well as I learned as a passive investor, watching my deals come to life and seeing what actually happened. And then I teamed with people who had more experience than me for my first deal, because these are large deals that involve other people's money. You don't want to make mistakes with other people's money. Yeah, you might get a single family rental, lose 10K on it because you got to do all these repairs. That's still your money. But we're talking millions of dollars. I mean, if you imagine 254 doors, nearly $30 million property, that's like 10, 15 million of other people's money.
Yep.
Hey, you can't make mistakes. Mistakes are very costly at that scale. So learn it slowly, take baby steps, do everything right, be comfortable with the risks, and protect your investors' capital before you say, I want to be an active investor.
Right.
Well, you have to be able to present the point of view as a passive investor for them to understand that you walked in their shoes before recommending it to somebody, right? You give advice to somebody, be a passive investor, but you've never been a passive investor yourself.
Yeah.
Who's going to listen to you?
100%.
You know what I mean?
When we're capital raise, one of the biggest questions that people ask is like, how much of your own money you put into the deal, know? And you got to know who he's putting as his own skin in the game, right?
Very important. Very, very important. Do you believe in the deal enough to put your own money in it? That's a fair question to ask. You don't believe in the deal, but you're asking me to put money in the deal, but not you?
Don't you
That
find
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no,
And
100%.
Yeah, and it's a fundamental question that a lot of people don't ask the big name sponsors.
They don't?
They don't. They only ask people who they feel, yeah. You ask a lot of the big name sponsors.
Everybody asks me.
They may ask you. Yeah, other people, they forget to ask the question of some of the big names we know in the industry. It's like, how much money do you have in the deal? Right? And they don't ask the question.
Well, it's you said something interesting, like getting familiar with the risks, right? And one of the things, not just, like I said, following up to the question that we put our own money into it, but I have actually family money into it. I have friends' money into it.
Yep. Dude,
that is a lot of responsibility in our shoulders. I was a little bit more comfortable with that, but Dada per se, it took her a little bit of time to get comfortable with that. That was challenging. How was it for you?
It's a big responsibility. That's why it was easier for me to be an LP myself, a passive investor, and then partner with people who knew what they were doing and have access to coaches. But as a project manager, I've kind of had a parallel path in the engineering world. If I made mistakes, it did cost the money, millions of dollars to the company, right?
And
so
possibly a job.
So I always had that risk mitigation and looking at parallel paths, always keeping an eye on the critical path. So similarly in asset management, right? There are certain numbers that are very critical to your operations, and you always start with like net rental revenue. Anytime that falls, you know the 2 or 3 main factors that influence that, which is occupancy and delinquency, right? So you go down that path. You know exactly where the problem is so you can fix it because you're an experienced asset manager too. So you know those. They could be 50 KPIs that some people might track with fancy charts and spreadsheets. But really, fundamentally, there's about 2 or 3 you constantly pay attention to. You look for the trends. Like right now, we're talking, it's October. You already have 90-day notices out because you know winter is a hard time for people to move. Nobody moves around Christmas. So if you don't have heads in beds right now, you know you're going to have a problem later. So you start anticipating issues and you mitigate those risks because ultimately protecting your investors' capital and keeping residents happy in your properties is your job. Those are your 2 customers.
100%. You know, we say a lot of data and stuff, but I like to say that and reinforcing that we're in a hospitality business, man. You know,
You
do
sure
the
are.
principal things, the take care of the, back to the principle of treating people right, that will stay, that will move in. You know, we have competitions, unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately, right?
Yeah, I mean,
And Sandhya, how do you like the fact of being an asset manager? Is this something that you're passionate about it?
I feel very strongly about it because when I moved to this country, you know, I came with 2 suitcases. My parents made $60 a month in salary. So the only way I could come was with a scholarship. And I lived in a C-class apartment, but I went to a very fancy school here called SMU. And I saw the way the other side of the world, if you will, lived while I'm in this roach-infested C-class apartment. And I was like, wow, they have cul-de-sacs, they have a community, all these people know each other, they all go to school together, they all raise their kids together. How cool is that? So I wanted to bring a community sense to these apartments. That was what was missing. So I made sure we do that. And so by building a community, you retain the same employees. Like we have the same employees on 3 of our properties for the last 3 years. So they form a very tight-knit group of people executing your business plan. And then that translates to great customer service to the residents and community. So when we review a report every week, my property manager knows exactly what's happening. So the resident in unit 202, they said they lost their job, they're working to pay it, they've applied for assistance. They know them by name, they know their stories, and that makes for excellent retention and great reviews on our website. And that's what we want. So we want to build communities. So we periodically have these community activities that I love to do as a PTA mom, you know, heart of a PTA mom. So we had National Night Out just a few days ago. We're getting ready for Halloween, whether it's a costume contest,
Patio
trick-or-treating.
competition.
So fun, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, we do free turkey or pies for Thanksgiving. We have Santa come to our properties for Christmas. We, in fact, have the same Santa going to a bunch of our properties. But, you know, it's so much fun. And it's love to see the smiley faces of our residents, their kids. And you're building a community. So it's harder for people to leave. And they discuss the real issues with you. And they'll tell you, hey, your rent is a little high for this kind of a unit. I really need something more fancy to pay this rent. Okay, you want a new fridge? Sure, let's get it. And so we'd rather keep our residents staying with us and build that loyalty rather than let them leave. And so that's the fundamentals of it.
If you go back to this right now and watch it 3 times, if you want to learn anything about apartments, because that is for me the fundamentals of creating a successful business in this industry, especially nowadays. You know what I mean? I was talking to a few leaders of our industry here earlier. We're talking about contracts of other areas that it's very important as well, but that is the fundamentals. But Sandhya, changing gears here, do you like coffee on a scale from 1 to 10?
Can I take the 5th on that, considering this is the Real Grind podcast?
Well, we take the challenge because we have people that hate coffee. We have people that never, ever sip on a coffee. And we change some perspectives here. So you open-minded to try?
Sure.
Alrighty then.
I will try anything.
This is the coffee time. Let's go. I can feel some nervousness over here, Italo.
Just about
I love those challenges.
Sandhya, first of all, very nice having you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
What's up?
What up, though?
So I overheard from there. She pleaded the 5th.
That's okay. I love those challenges, man.
I do too. I do. Because a lot of times, Sandhya, let me track back here because I like hearing stories about how did you grow up having coffee in your house? Like, did you guys drink coffee?
Yes, my parents were huge coffee drinkers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the smell, have never really liked the taste in the past.
So, okay, let's dig on that a little bit. What kind of drove you away from that? Was the taste too bitter for you?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah, I wanted something sweet. I didn't want something bitter, especially as a kid.
Do you like
right?
tea? Not really either.
Not
You never got
huge
into the whole
fan.
Texas tea
Wine?
thing?
Oh yeah, now you're talking.
Awesome. So, well, you know, when we're college students or young adults, we go for cheaper wine. And as we get apartment investor with 3,000 units above, we start getting fancy. We start eating good wine and we can't go back anymore. It's like once you go to a good wine, you can't go back.
That's what I've heard.
But coffee is the same thing. You know, if I tell you that a fruit of coffee is very sweet and the coffee is supposed to be sweet, so maybe.
Did you know that? The coffee is sweeter than a grape?
Did not.
Did you know that coffee was a fruit?
Did not know that at all.
So those are two fun facts for you right there. So
Okay.
I learned that from Neander a long time ago. So coffee in the grape, right? If you put them side by side, coffee, the only difference between the grape, it has a bigger seed, less pulp. You got the grape, smaller seed, big pulp, right? So that's why a lot of times people think, oh, that's not possible. But when you go to a coffee tree and you just yank one of those like very ripe coffee beans from there and you just peel it off and you eat the pulp, you're like, this is not the coffee that I'm used to, because that's what coffee is supposed to be like.
Wow.
So a way for them to camouflage that is just over roasting coffee. So that's why the coffee they always drank before was bitter, was just tastes weird.
Exactly.
You know? And then you had to put sugar on it to camouflage that taste. Or
Yep.
you have to do like a crazy chemistry class in there just to make that coffee taste
Exactly.
acceptable.
Yeah.
We're about to change that. Okay, so as you're a wine drinker, we're gonna sip on this coffee just like wine. You're gonna slurp on it, let it sit in your mouth, and we go
It's
from
not
there.
hot.
It's not hot. You good?
Wow. That's not bad at all.
And
It's not bitter like my mom's coffee.
I would say the same about my mom's coffee too, because my mom to this day, I'll make coffee like that for her. She will squeeze like sweeteners on it.
Wow.
But this coffee, the colder it gets, you're gonna start noticing. Do you like blueberries?
Yeah.
Now take another sip, but let it sit a little longer in your mouth. And you're gonna
Think of blueberry.
think of blueberry in there.
A little bit aftertaste.
There's a little aftertaste in there that brings the blueberry notes out of that coffee.
Wow. Learned something new.
But I want you to be honest though. You don't need to please us. Do you like it?
I like it a lot better than what I thought coffee was, but I
Okay.
still like my wine better than this.
100%.
However, I like
I'll
cold.
go there with you.
I like things colder.
Okay.
So I tend to put a lot of ice when I drink tea, which is very rare. And I like
But
chilled
this is
wine,
actually
etc.
make a very nice cold brew. Like
Cold
if
brew?
if
Okay.
you put some ice on it, it's actually very good.
There's a method that I did here one time in Neander was like, I don't want cold coffee. We were drinking coffee because there's a method that I make in there that it becomes like just a cold pour over. And we were drinking on wine glass. That's how good it was. So good quality coffee, you can make it cold. And bad
It's
quality
very
coffee.
refreshing too.
This is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah,
That was
very,
From
very
a
well.
scale of 0 to 10,
Yeah.
what's your note here?
What's your score on that?
If I had to have coffee, this would probably be a 10.
All right,
I'll
we'll
take
take
it.
that.
This
I'll
would be
take
the
it.
best coffee I've ever had in my life.
Hey, I'll take it. Sandhya, so this coffee that you had for people at home, if you ever want to put your hands on the coffees that we drink here at the Real Grind Podcast, we just launched F Monday. It's our coffee.
Okay.
To empower entrepreneurs.
Ooh.
And it's a bit of coffee with attitude. That's what we call it. A dose of attitude on your Mondays, because Mondays, you work
Yes.
corporate America.
It's a manic Monday even today as an entrepreneur. So I'm very grateful that it's almost the end of Monday and I got through Monday.
There you go. And again, we got her a little bit of coffee to get through that Monday. And so could you at home. So go to fmonday.com so you can subscribe and get the best coffees that we drink here at the show and help entrepreneurs, maybe like yourself, or small local farmers that are trying just to make their name out there and get their coffee known, just like this coffee right here. So, Sandhya, before I go, I know you said you're not a coffee drinker, but this can also accept different types of beverages.
Wow.
So this is for you, so you can take home.
you.
And next time you're having either your tea or anything of your liking in there, you can
How
remember
sweet.
of this sweet moment that we're sharing here.
Thank
while
you
sharing
so
some coffee.
much.
You
And
might.
I'd love a trip to Brazil sometime as well, and
Let's
actually
go.
do what you just described. We just go to a coffee plant and actually taste a sweet
would love
coffee
it.
bean. That
You
would be
love it.
amazing.
You would change the way you think of coffee. But
For sure.
I'll
Thank
let
you.
y'all keep going at it. I want to hear more about your story. I've always seen you since I started doing gigs with you. Sandhya was always a face that I would see there, and with that big smile, as always, very approachable. And I want to hear more of your story and learn some more, as always.
Thank you.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much.
amazing.
Yeah,
I really
my
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
And catch you on the flip side.
Welcome to the corporate world, a place you go to every day against your will, with endless meetings. And worst of all, shitty coffee. Introducing F*** Monday, a specialty coffee for those who want to kickstart the week with a better taste. A reminder to do your own thing or go after what's brewing in your head. Unless you're thinking of reading tarot cards for dogs or other dumb ideas like that. For everyone else, F*** Monday, your daily dose of attitude.
This coffee beats the best tea I've had.
Let's
How about
go.
that?
That's good. Now we're getting something here. All right. Sandhya, have you heard about the terminology success leaves clues?
Oh, yeah. Tony Robbins.
Tony
right?
Robbins,
then
and yeah,
Ralph
and
Waldo
I totally, I've probably, we know each other for what, 4 or 5 years?
easily,
Plus
yeah.
months?
Yeah.
And I see how much you've grown and how much bigger deals you're doing, and it's very fascinating to see. I'm a big fan myself. And now talk a little bit about how you're inspiring other people to do it, because I see you a lot of other stages. You have your program or AceOperators. Can you? How did that came about? You the mentorship, and can you talk a little bit about that?
So I actually want to start back to my first deal as a general partner. And that was back in 2019. And that's a deal locally. And I partnered with 2 other operators who lived out of state. And they were the brains, and I was just the brawn trying to tag along and learn from them. And what happened was COVID hit a few months later in early 2020. They couldn't travel as much. So I ended up doing a lot of the boots on the ground kind of travel, just going to the property and learning from all these vendors and property manager, et cetera. And that's where I learned so much about how it actually, gets done. How do you actually execute a plan?
Let the rubber
to
meets
make-
the road, right?
Exactly. How do you make money with apartments? How do you keep your customers, which are the residents, happy so they stay through something like COVID? So
Yeah.
I learned a ton from it. So it came naturally to me, therefore, to take more of the steering wheel on my future deals after that, doing that. And in early 2023, when the bridge loans were starting to suffer because the interest rates went up so much, I was at this best ever conference, and a bunch of people came to me really worried about their deal, saying, help me, what can I do with this deal? And I still see myself sitting and doing all these side conversations saying, start with these 5 parametrics, go with this. When you have negative cash flow, you're losing money every month, you got to stop it right now, et cetera, et cetera. I find myself repeating the same thing over and over to several different people. And that's when the idea came about. So I said, I'm going to write a book about it. So I went back to my coach, and I said, I'm going to write a book all about asset management because people are asking me the same thing over and over. The coach said, Sandhya, you're not really a book writer. You've never done a book in your life. It's going to take you forever. So why don't you launch a mastermind instead, a small group of people, see what they're willing to pay you for the education you've done so far for free, and then keep recording those sessions. And eventually, if it makes sense later, you can always do a book. But you're a talker. You're not really a writer by nature, and most people who know me know that. So that's how that came about. I emailed about a dozen people and said, would you be interested if I gave you my time and we all put together a group of individuals, brought in the right guests to teach us more. So we all grow together, focusing on the forgotten piece. So every mentorship program that I knew about at that time, never covered asset management because
Yeah.
they had all started back in, 2014, 2015 or earlier when cap rate compression worked really well. So you didn't have to operate your property very efficiently to make
Market
money.
is a lot more forgiving.
Right? You just bought the property, held it a couple of years, did a few things, let property management handle it. You still made money. But the people thought they could continue to do that. And interest rate went up, what? There was 10 interest rate hikes? That was insane. And so bridge loan deals, which had a floating rate loan, they got squeezed. They had no more cash flow after paying such a huge mortgage payment. And that's why the birth of AceOperators, my asset management mastermind, which is for a small exclusive group of people who truly want to improve their operations. It's by application only. And once I review the application and think I can help these folks, I still run it by some of the people in my group to say, will this person be a good fit for our
Yeah.
group? We don't want one person to come and drain the group and take the energy away.
Keep the culture, right?
That's right. The culture is so important, and we're keeping it small because we deep dive into deals. When we deep dive into the financial audit of a deal, we don't want that information shared elsewhere, so we can be truly honest with each other. So we hide the name of the deals. We go into little Zoom rooms. We discuss how you can fix this deal. What can you do? What are your options? Do you have to do a loan mod? Where do you start, etc.? So that's why we can't serve 100 people when you go into that level of depth on everyone's deals. And we got to bring in experts. So we bring in a lender when people are struggling with how do I refi or loan mod a deal? And so that's really how it all came about. And so now we had a one-day asset management event all day in Dallas to commemorate our 1-year anniversary, which was fantastic.
Nice.
So very excited to do that. And so I look
Wow,
forward
I
to
remember when you're putting it together. It's been a year.
Yeah, that was last May.
That's
so That was
awesome.
like 6 months ago.
Congratulations.
So now we're at like almost the 18-month mark, and there's a lot of people who are still in the mastermind. So it's very exciting.
That's awesome. That means that is, like I said, that's why I start opening statement, success leaves clues. And, you're obviously very successful in what you do. And, having that motivation also, Sandhya, to teach, I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
You know
I've
what I'm saying?
always been a teacher at heart. I've always tutored, but I only want to do it to select group of motivated people, which is why the screening is essential.
Yeah.
You have to apply because there's a lot of people who say, I just want to shadow you and I want to learn how to buy an apartment. I've never done an apartment before. Then I'm sorry, you probably need to go through one of the other mentoring
Right.
programs that
Yeah.
is more for a first-time newbie. Because this is for an operator who has at least 100 doors.
Yeah.
And we know that in a couple of calls, we can impact their NOI by at least
Right.
$10,000.
That's
our
amazing.
commitment.
That's
And
a powerful statement.
yeah, I can, and I can stand by it. I've got about 8 people who won the Millionaire Award, meaning after implementing the strategies they learned in our program, they increased their property values by at least $1 million. And
That's
we gave out
amazing.
8 of those awards at our anniversary event. So it's real.
It's real for real.
Yeah.
And how can people get in touch with you, Sandhya? How do they find you? Is that a website or LinkedIn or what is it?
All of the above. So LinkedIn is where I post the most. And so find me on LinkedIn and send me a quick note that you met me through the Real Grind podcast through Neander. So I know. AceOperators.com is my mastermind website. And that's where you would apply if you think this mastermind might help you improve the operations in your property. And for anyone who wants to be a potential investor in my future deals, it's engineered-capital.com. And again, the link to all of that is in my LinkedIn profile as well.
We're going to also
Easy
post
to
a
find
link
me.
down below so you can easily access watching this podcast. So you can go directly to Sandhya's website and get to know about her, because that is where you find good operators, people that have a track record that really cares. She mentioned about creating the community. And I think that's one of the biggest fundamentals that a lot of people miss. We had investors with us that coming and it was like, oh, but how is the numbers? I only care about the numbers. Like, oh, let me give her a little bit of context. And all of a sudden the numbers became different after that,
Yeah.
So that's a very cool thing. And Sandhya, what is your path of 5 years from now? What is the mastermind and what is the acquisition side? What is 5 years from now? Where are you going to be?
If the deal makes sense, I will go after it. There was a year in 2022 when the deals made sense and I did 3 deals. It's a year now, 2024. No deal has really worked out and made sense. So I have 0 deals. So I
I
don't
thought it was
have...
just us. So you're not deals this year either.
Yeah, so I don't have a deal count, dollar count,
No, me
because
neither.
then that'll put unnecessary pressure and tempt you to make offers or underwrite unrealistically. So right now I'm underwriting with no rent increases, possibly concessions, no increase in your other income sources, probable increase in your insurance and taxes because all my deals are in the Dallas area, and then the exit cap, which means in 5 years when I sell this property, what are the interest rates and cap rates going to be doing? I am still assuming it to be higher than what I'm purchasing it at right now because I don't believe the sentiment that rates are going to drop to 4 or 4.5% in the next 3 to 5 years. But if it happens, you know what? It's going to be a great upside for my properties. So it's sort of like an ace up your sleeve. You don't use it when you play the game.
Well,
you just keep it in hand.
No, it's great. Apply, guys, you're watching this, apply those principles right now, what she just described into your underwriting, see if deals are going to work. I know people are saying, but this is the right time to buy it. I understand that. And it is, must be great. But I tell you what, the good, best deals are being offered under the radar.
Yep.
To only a few people. What is
Correct.
coming to market today, I want to say this in a negative way, but you have to be careful. And applying those principles, I can almost guarantee that the numbers will not make sense. There's been deals that we underwrote this year also. It didn't make sense.
Yep. I underwrote a deal and I came up with a price, and a deal is under contract now for over $1 million more than what I had offered. So I know that I wish them the very best, and maybe they have some tricks that I don't have.
And it's fine.
It's possible.
We can predict the future. I've seen people that got shitty deals and make into something, you know what I'm
Correct.
saying? But knowing what we know today, by being conservative and only going to what we really believe is a strong thing, it's more conservative and
Yeah.
it gives more of a peace of mind, would you think?
Yes, absolutely. I have enough deals that, keep me up at night. I don't need one more deal to add to that list of, I'm really worried about it and I have to work a Sunday for it, I
Very
don't
good.
need that.
Well, Sandhya, this is the part that we're going to ask some questions. Gives us some fun. This is the Spilling the Beans with Sandhya. Let's go. Pursuing passion projects or projects we guarantee results.
Passion projects, because if you're passionate about it, you will do the homework for it and you will find the results.
All right. Change the world or change yourself.
Change myself first and change my lens.
And then change the world.
And then you can change the world maybe.
Responsibility to others or responsibility to self.
I think when it comes to investing, you have other people's money. You got to be responsible in that sense. And I brought kids into this world, so I'm responsible for them. But I also have to take care of myself, because what's in me is what's going to spill and overflow into others. So if I forget self-care, it's going to reflect all around me.
True. Knowing a little about everything or knowing everything about one thing.
I do a little of both. So you have to have that helicopter view when you look at properties or when you look at a strategic approach to even your family, 10 years. You got to be able to get into the details, just like the technical engineer that I am. So I actually do both. That's what makes me unique.
Let's go. Being a leader or being a follower with a strong leader.
Both. I was a follower of many leaders in this real estate world, but I'm also a leader in some ways in this real estate world. Same with parenting, same with anything else in life. We can always improve. We just need to go now and find the next room if we become the leaders in a room. So we continue to grow and evolve.
I love that. I often say a good leader is always a good follower.
Yeah, can't do one versus the other. It's got to be both.
Living in the past or living in the future.
Living in the present. Don't miss the present moment because you're worried if you'll have enough money for retirement, or don't keep dwelling on a past mistake. Learn from it and don't make that same mistake again.
Very good. Finding meaning in chaos or creating order from chaos.
Do both, because everything happens for a reason. Believe in that. And you will learn something from it, even though you're in the middle of that chaos and you're like, why is this happening to me? And then you're like, oh, but I'm a leader. I'm going to rise from these ashes and figure life out because that's who I am.
Engineering or real estate?
Why not both? It's fun. Why do I have to choose? I mean, why can't we have it all? I have a family and I'm an entrepreneur. I travel and I still work.
That's great.
Why do we have to choose? I mean, is it coffee or tea? Why not drink both?
That's why she takes the fifth. Feeling the things. Let's go. Sandhya, such an honor to have you here on the show, The Real Grind. You know, a great talk, and you add a lot of value. Talk about this book here. You said you didn't want to write a book, but you how do you say co-host or co-book? Co-author a book.
Because all I had to do was write one chapter, and this is through a program by Kyle Wilson. Mm-hmm. So he helps us write books because he's done this for other people. So first you answer a questionnaire, you figure out what's the most passionate things of your life you want to focus on. So in my case, it was about how I came to this country, 2 suitcases in hand and, $8 a week in like food budget. And then how did I now come to managing millions of dollars of apartments? So it's a fun story. So I can send an ebook as well to anybody who wants to read my story there. But it's one chapter. It's far less intimidating to do the baby steps than say, I'm going to write a whole book and then not even write a chapter. And so this way you're led and you're given help to write it. So I would say get started somewhere. Write an article, comment on a post if you're afraid of writing a whole book.
Very good. Thank you so much. And Sandhya, if you could look at the camera there and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would you have to say?
You are a lot wiser than you realize. Don't listen to people just because they're older than you. There's a lot you can learn from young people. I learn a lot from my children. So be bold, take chances. Now's your time. Seize the moment.
That's beautiful. That's a nice statement.
Thank
Congratulations. Congratulations for all you do, Sandhya. Thank you for being a friend and for, being also a collaborator in all of our events. We're a big fan here and we looking forward growing that relationship with you, growing together. I often say that, the collaboration now is what leads us to success together.
Absolutely. I can't wait to do more things with you. And I'm a huge fan of you and Delia and your entire team here. You're amazing people. So thank you for the honor of being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching the Real Grind podcast or listening to it on your way to work, during your workout. No matter where you want to listen to these amazing stories or watch it, we're there for you. Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, you name it. We're there for you to get inspired by people just like Sandhya. This episode is sponsored by F Monday. So go to fmonday.com to get the best coffees that we drink here on The Real Grind. Don't miss this out. I'll catch you on the next episode. In the meantime, drink amazing coffee. We wait for you. This is The Real Grind. Let's go.
Waking up to success, now we're getting it started. This is the real grind. Everything you've been wanting, building an empire, no question. Talking about real estate, investing, making the millions, no stopping. While we sip on gourmet coffee.